that he persuaded us to take Bob to Yosemite, because when he first suggested, I said, well, how can we take to Yosemite? In a wheelchair and this and that. And Kim said, no, no. He says, I'll push the wheelchair, we'll get him to Yosemite, and we did. Now I'll have a few words from number 2 son. Always number 2, sorry. My son, Mark. And his wife, Jan.
So welcome. I'd like to welcome you all. Yes, I was the second son. So
You tried harder?
I tried. I experienced probably something different than my brother remembers. For me, the 15, 16 years that I was at home with my dad, I just had fun. Everything was great. We'd go play tennis, and this was memories where I could barely lift a racket. And Kim and Dad would be playing, and they'd humor me. They'd let me run around with the racket and stuff. Eventually, I hit a few, and they were patient with me. They never kicked me off the court. They were never mean or nasty about it. And that was my dad. I mean, he taught me everything I know about being a man, about honor, integrity, about having fun and enjoying life, which was what he was all about. And so that's what I did. And I can't really, think of a time I was unhappy as a kid. I tried. I really did. But it never happened to me. And I think my dad and my mom, obviously, did some things right. And then there was a period of time where I went off to college and moved around the country and started my family. And it was at that point that the relationship I had with my father changed. It wasn't Dad anymore, it was Papa. And all the last 30 years, he's been Papa to me and to my family. And Camille, Kevin, and Justine, he was Papa to them. And I like to think that he brought to them the same things that he was able to bring to me, which was, a passion for life, for having fun, for being honest, and having integrity in everything we do. And that was the man that I knew as my father, Dad, and then Papa. So, my son Kevin couldn't be with us here today. He and his wife, living in Texas, are going through some medical issues. He's got a new job. He's finishing an MBA this semester. So, but he did have a few words to say, and my wife Jan would like to share those with you. And any Roman.
Now this is from Kevin. Papa, how do you put into words the impact that someone has had on your life? Papa was more than a grandfather to me. He was a role model. When I grow older, I can only hope to have half the joy and spirit that Papa had his whole life. He was a kid at heart. I remember trips to Disneyland, going on Thunder Mountain and Autopia. He always let me have the faster car. I remember planting orange seeds in the backyard in the valley and playing in the mud afterward. He was the first person with a joke, and he always knew something about everything, even if it wasn't actually true. I remember the stories he would tell at the dinner table, particularly when they were, particularly when they went just a little too long. Grandma loved those stories too. He was always happy, he loved people, and any place where he is, there will surely be laughter and joy.
Oh, that's
And I just wanted to share a few of my experiences. When I met Bob, he was Papa to me also. And he just really loved the grandchildren, and he was one of the kids. And Kevin mentioned mud, and mud seems to be really important to Papa and Kevin, because when we were little and we'd come out to visit, Papa would turn the hose on in the backyard, and the big walnut tree that's out there was not quite so big. And Kevin would get it full of mud. Well, one day, Justine was little, and Kevin was probably about 4. And Grandma had to go to a teacher conference or training or something that day. So we were just hanging out at the house, and I was sitting in the screened-in patio, and Papa and Dad, I was called Mark Dad, so they were outside, and they had the hose on, and the kids are playing in the mud, and Papa just let the hose go. And it was like a swamp back there. And Papa and Dad, Mark, were sitting on the table, of course, consuming their favorite adult beverage, beer. And they're getting a little happier as the time's going by. And so then Papa says, oh, I'm supposed to get the leaves off the awning of the screened-in patio, so let's get the ladder. So they go and get the ladder, and of course they put the ladder up, and it is just a swamp. And it starts sinking, sinking. And they're laughing, and they start singing songs, and then the next thing, Grandma wasn't there. And then the kids are like, oh, that looks pretty cool. And then the next thing you know, the ladder starts tilting and tilting. Well, by the end of the afternoon, everyone was covered in mud. And I said, we better get everything cleaned up before Grandma gets home, because we've got mud everywhere. But that was Papa. He just loved being with the kids and had a really good time. And it didn't matter who the kids were, because when Kevin got married, we had all my nieces and nephews and their spouses and girlfriends, and so all these kids. And unfortunately, Kevin and Christina and Justine were involved with getting ready for the wedding, and Camille was helping getting ready for the wedding. So Papa was out playing with all of them, and there's a pool with a slide. And by the end of that weekend, all our nieces and nephews and their spouses and girlfriends and all these 20-something-year-old kids were going, we sure loved Papa. He was a trooper. We had more fun with him on the slide. And at the end of that evening, we were getting ready to leave, and all of a sudden we go, where's Papa? And Grandma says, oh, I better go find him. Well, Papa was inside at the reception, still doing what Papa loves to do, dancing. And those are some of my special memories about Papa and with the children. And he's just always going to be Papa to us.